Hello and welcome to the actual episode 15 of The Pouch, the dive-bombing plover of podcasts that aims to help Australians try and make sense of their current political environment. I'm Gregg, never washed my hands so much in my life, savage.
And I'm Jake. That's not a stimulus package. This is a knife. Bar Wharton. On today's episode, we briefly acknowledge the existence of the coronavirus, but we also acknowledge that you're probably also getting your news from everywhere. So we take you through the key events, the most important events in political news this week that you may have missed out on.
And Jake, while we are snug as a bug in a rug in the proverbial pouch, I would love it if you could talk me through some of those points about the government's stimulus package.
Spoiler alert, the sequel will be better.
We had a discussion before the show and we tried to regroup, didn't we? We tried to remember our roots, which is Australian politics. And, you know, let's pretend that that coronavirus wasn't happening, that there'd still be politic stuff happening, right? There'd still be political news happening. So we're going to try and bring you that today.
Yep.
We're going to try and cut through the coronavirus stuff and try and bring you a few stories which are relevant to politics in Australia and stay true to our roots.
Pork barreling.
It's basically just episodes 9 to 11 all over again.
Exactly. We've sort of taken the opinion that most listeners will be getting their news from everywhere. So on the coronavirus specifically. So we thought we would enable you to hear what you may be missing out on.
Yeah, I think that's a great approach. And first things first, we did have a review, Jake, in Apple Podcasts. Someone actually wrote us a review. We actually have 3 there, but we did promise that we would write that we would read out the very first one that we had.
Yep.
And the very first one that we had is from Ardeet on March 4th. And Ardeet titled his review an informative political amble, which is nice.
Very nice.
Start.
It's very nice.
He gave it 4 stars, which is okay. I'm not angry about that.
I'm angry.
I think if I was to give myself a rating, I'd probably give myself 4 stars.
Yeah.
I think.
You're among the top 2 quadrants. Well, it's not really quadrants if there's 5.
No. Yeah, but see, that's why we're in the 4 stars. It's the math. It's the maths that's holding us back.
It's the maths that lessons down.
Ardeet said, Jake and Gregg triage the week's Australian political events and pack them around amiable conversation. That's you, Jake. While the feel of the podcast is casual, it's a very comfortable way to be updated on politics that matter.
Yes.
An Australian podcast that is worth subscribing to your playlist. Could do with more discussion on barrels and pork. Well, Ardeet, have we got a treat for you?
Have we got some treats for you?
It's basically the title of our show at this point.
No, that's fantastic. Thank you very much, Ardeet, and thank you for all subsequent reviewers. We greatly appreciate it. As we say in the outro every week, it certainly does help other people to find our show, the reviews and stars. So please go ahead and contribute to that process also.
All right, well, let's get into it, Jake. So I know we've got a lot of we've got a lot of quarantining to do after this show. So
yes,
a lot of shopping.
No joke.
So, all right. So I was perusing the interwebs this week, and I found out that the Liberal Party has a shop. They have a shop on their page, which I thought was interesting. So I had a look at it. And these are some of the things that you can. What do you think you could buy? Actually, did you have a look at the link? I don't know. Tell me what you think you could buy.
This is all. I thought I would leave with. I thought I would present you with genuine shock at the ability to purchase things from political parties. So what I think you could purchase from the Liberal Party shop, I reckon it would be hats and shirts, blue with some gold tinge around them, white writing, Liberal National Party. I think that's what you would be able to buy.
Yeah, look, you're pretty close. There's no National Party. There's no mention of the National
Okay,
Party.
just the
It's
Liberals.
just
Okay,
Liberal.
fair enough.
Yeah, yep. They've gone this one solo. Now, this is what you can buy. There's a couple of highlights. I won't go through the whole lot. There's a poster of Scott Morrison.
Okay. That's good. I bought one of those. We discussed it on a separate episode, on a previous episode.
Well, it's $45.
Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Very high quality poster.
In the promo picture, they've got it hanging by bull clips. You know those clips that hold your folders together.
$45 bull clips.
I think that's where most of the money goes.
Yes, that makes a lot of sense.
Quality.
Yeah.
Okay. You can also buy a cup, like a mug.
Good.
And on it, it has, I don't know who that is, 1944?
1944, yeah, that would be around the time of Menzies, Sir Robert Menzies.
Yeah. Was he Liberal?
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, okay. So 1944 to 2019. So it's got 1944 with a picture of Menzies, and then it's got a color picture of Scott Morrison in 2019. That's all that's on that cup, on the mug.
Yeah, nobody else in between those periods. He is a wow. Menzies spent a tremendous amount of time in power, or right. Scott Morrison did. I'm just not sure which one it is. But given that there were no other Liberal leaders in between Menzies and Morrison, then look, 75 years worth of Menzies and Morrison. That's great. I love it.
Well, how much? That's right. It does say the Liberal Party 75 years mug. How much would you pay for said mug?
I reckon, look, a good mug at a good mug purveying store is, I reckon, about $6 to $12.
You are so wrong.
Okay, all right. Shock me.
Higher, man. We're going higher. $35.
Wow, that's great. You know what I wouldn't put in there? You know what I wouldn't put in that mug? You know what I wouldn't put in there? I wouldn't put coffee in there. I would never stain that thing with like a $35 mug. That's got to be a large mug. I would eat ice cream out of that mug. That would be that I would only eat amazing things out of that mug.
Well, that's what I was thinking. If I spent $35 on a mug, everything is coming out of that mug. Like I am eating like my dinner.
Yep, the rest
eaten out of that mug.
All of my meals in future.
All right. Now this one here, I love this one because this just shows how much they've got their finger on the pulse. You know, with what people really want to buy.
How great is coronavirus?
They have. Well, yeah, we'll get to that. They have a Liberal Party mouse pad.
Oh, good. Because everyone's using mice these days.
And it's $10.
Okay.
And it just has like a mantra. I'm guessing that it's like a common mantra. So it's like, we believe in Australia, the people and its future. We believe in the innate worth of the individual, in the right of the independent to own property and to achieve. I mean, that's just the first two lines, and there's probably about like 30 lines. So it's quite a powerful.
Well, it just screams whack a mouse on top of
mouse
that.
Pad. Was it? I mean, gosh, you'd be inspired, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
You'd be like, yeah, you know, like while I'm doing my graphic designing, I'm just, you know. I'm inspired to be,
wow.
You know, I love capitalism and all sorts of things. Anyway.
I'm going to liberally highlight this word and delete it.
So there's some of the things that you can buy from the Liberal Party store. Pretty funny. You can buy cufflinks and T-shirts and hoodies, and it's just.
Well, do they have any of those? You know, how great is or how good is? You know, Scott Morrison sayings. How good is Australia?
Yeah, they've got how good. How good is Australia?
How good is a stimulus package, right?
Like beer cozy. What do you call them?
Yeah, a beer cozy.
How much,
I like it.
I got my finger on the
cooler.
pulse. Yeah, the beer cooler, right? They've got a cooler, and you can get How Good is Australia. And I think there's a How Good is Australia mug as well. Now the Labor Party,
yes,
also has a shop.
Good. I'm glad. There's got to be balance in this place.
They have a retro range.
A retro range. I love it. So we've got some...
so it's got Labor...
Gough Whitlam stuff in there, some Bob Hawke.
Yeah, well, there is a Labor leader's stubby cooler, and that's got everyone by the looks of it.
Okay. So not just two.
There's a tea towel.
Ah, yes, fantastic.
It's got Keating and Hawke and Rudd and Gillard.
Wow.
It's a limited edition tea towel. So get in quick, guys. It's a limited edition tea towel. It's $35.
$35. Smudge your food with this. Wow.
It's so funny. And it's got Labor leaders coasters, a set of 4, $15. So you can get a cooler. I think I'm going to get the set and just be a riot at my next party. Take the coolers, take the stubby cooler. The coasters, the stubby cooler, and the tea towel.
Yep.
I mean, I'll probably have to wear the tea towel around my face by that stage anyway.
Yep.
So,
yes,
anyway.
That's true. Just for the purposes of keeping a cough to yourself.
Now we're laughing, right? But what about that brand, Supreme? That's how they got their start, by doing random, weird, edgy things. So maybe these guys are, I'm laughing at them, but hey, maybe they're pretty, they got their finger on the pulse.
Maybe they do, which is appropriate right now to have your finger on the pulse.
What would you put in the Liberal Party store?
Look,
I think you had some Scott Morrison earrings, didn't you?
Yes, I think that would be amazing. I think I would also origami. So I reckon if you could make an origami face of Scott Morrison and then set that, those would make some, like you could make pendants out of that. You could make earrings. You could make a brooch. Actually, I think a brooch is very on brand for the Liberal Party. So I think that's a great idea. Not so much nipple piercings, but definitely a brooch.
Look, you know what they say, Christmas is just around the corner.
That's true.
Fingers crossed for that one. I think I like the origami idea, because that would be something that you could you could have on your shelf at work while you're reading the poetry that is on the Liberal Party mouse pad.
Yeah, the credo. I think. However, for the Labor Party, like a poster of maybe a hammer crossed by a sickle.
We're not there yet.
Yes.
We're not there yet.
That was fun. That was fun.
That was good. All right, very artistic. All right, we do have some real news. We thought we'd open up with something a little bit lighter there.
Yeah.
And I love a bit of Pauline Hanson news.
Yeah.
So what's Pauline up to, Jake?
Well,
talk us through it.
So Pauline Hanson has been talking up. She's joining essentially a national family law inquiry, which the Family Law Commission of Inquiry has commenced its review this week of the family law system, and it started in Townsville this week, of all places.
Townsville's getting a bit of news this week, isn't it?
It certainly is.
We got the footy starting up there. We got the family law inquiry.
Yep, 2 things.
I'm from Townsville.
3 things. All right, we're there.
Bede is in Townsville. Bede's in Townsville. Hi, Bede.
Hey, Bede. How you going? How's the mowing going?
Yeah. I hope it's going well for you,
so
Bede.
too.
I hope the length of the podcast is to your mowing approval.
Yeah. So the wide-ranging review will go through issues including the onus of proof required to gain an apprehended violence order, or AVO, the cost of the court process, claims of false evidence being used against former partners, and essentially the rights of men involved in family breakdown. So the inquiry, it already sounds a little bit biased, but when I tell you who is on the commission, who is heading up the Commission of Inquiry, maybe this might give you some views into whether there is bias, in fact, in this inquiry. So it's being led by Liberal backbencher Kevin Andrews, and as we said, One Nation's Pauline Hanson, who has regularly said that her office is approached regularly with stories from men who have been treated unfairly by the system. Now, I want to make it clear that there is I am absolutely certain there are plenty of cases where the family law system has biased one parent over another, or has treated men unfairly in certain occasions. But this is the sort of thing, particularly in the wake of of understanding. I think now we are starting to get a better understanding of the sheer amount of cases of domestic violence across Australia. There was that case very recently in Brisbane of I believe it was Rowan Baxter, who essentially murdered his wife and children because of a family breakdown. So there are points that need to be considered here, and they need to be considered in essentially a considered way, in a very open and transparent way. And it is a little bit disconcerting to see this started off in the vein of I feel like there is a little bit of bias in the terms of reference here, starting off with, hey, men get a poor deal out of all of this, and then going into a family law inquiry. I feel like it needs to be given a lot more, consideration before launching into such an inquiry. Kevin Andrews is a former family affairs minister. He's a far-right Christian. So there is a lot of, I suppose there is a lot of weight in terms of there potentially being a bias towards, A, people staying together, and B, ignoring the plight of women and children in favour of men. And I just hope that doesn't happen.
I think what are the next steps for this inquiry?
Yeah, so the inquiry will be open for the next 6 months, and look, we'll keep you updated on how it's going, where it's going, and what it's looking at. But at this stage, it is an interesting thing. It is probably something, these types of laws, at a federal level, absolutely should be reviewed fairly regularly, because we are an evolving society. We are getting access to more information, more best practice evidence around how family breakdowns can be better managed. So it is appropriate that these sorts of laws are reviewed in sort of regular intervals. So yes, we'll keep you updated over the process of this inquiry over the next 6 months.
Now, the best thing about this article, Jake, I think, is the heading that you've come up with.
Yes. The ATO goes ka-ching and also catching.
But the way it's written, for those of you who can't see the script, is
which is all of you, by the way.
Catching, or catching?
Yeah.
Or catching, like the money. Very clever.
I meant, yeah, exactly. I meant it in exactly that double meaning that you've taken there, because they are going ka-ching in that there's it seems that there is a bunch of money that people aren't paying, but also they're going catching because they are getting access to new and better information all the time, and are getting a greater, which is improving their ability to seek out these individuals and businesses that may not be paying the amount of taxes that they should be doing, so that they can go out catching them. Yes.
I get it.
Yes.
I think I got it.
Jokes,
I just got it.
I've always found, Greg, are always better when you explain them.
Absolutely. I mean, that's most of the stand-up comedians on Netflix. Yep. I think this is if there were no coronavirus and there were no bushfires and there were no climate change, I think that the big news would be all these underpayments that are happening. And I know that this is separate from the wages, but it seems to me like that would be huge news that, all these companies underpay. I think Qantas came out this week and said that they were underpaying. They got to pay back like $9 million or something like that. Then we've got companies not paying tax, their amount of tax, and then the ATO swooping in to get that up. We're not talking about small sums of money here either.
No, let's go into the story. So
Are we not already in the story?
let's go. Well,
is this the preamble?
This is the preamble.
I thought we were in, man.
We are so deep right then. So roughly $960 million a year is not being paid, rather, by wealthy Australians and their businesses, it seems, according to the ATO. It represents roughly 9.6% of the more than $10 billion that 5,000 odd high wealth private groups should have paid in tax. How about that? That's a tremendous amount of money. That's almost the amount of the stimulus package that was announced this week at $17 billion.
Well, I wonder if this is a coincidence, yeah?
Yes, we need to make up roughly $17 billion. Go and get it. So the ATO Deputy Commissioner, Tim Dice, said that 90% of that very large group paid the right amount of tax, and most underpayment was due to a lack of understanding of how tax applied in unusual situations, or they just had a good accountant. Yeah.
Well, not less. Yeah. Well, the ones who got caught didn't have a good accountant, did they?
Yeah. Exactly. So, quote, he said, "It's not really a matter of if the taxation office will get access to the information that they require to track it down. Most of the population is compliant. It's just pretty rare that it's at the evasion level. They make a point of dealing with it very robustly, and it sends an important message when they catch them."
Maybe they can get, some better hold music now that they've got all this money back.
I reckon they use...
Or maybe a bit more staff.
Yes. No, that'd be great. I reckon for the hold music, I think everybody should be using the song Intermission by Offspring.
By Tool?
No. Intermission by Offspring.
How does Intermission by Offspring go?
Intermission.
It was almost.
Sorry, go.
It's almost a taste of how terrible Offspring were to become, because that's off their.
Yeah,
that's off their Smash album, isn't it?
Intermission.
That's it. That was like the taste of how terrible they were about to become, and no one picked up on it. No one could expect Pretty Fly for a White Guy was going to just be around the corner.
Yeah.
From the millions to the billions, Jake.
To the quadrillions.
To infinity and beyond.
Yep.
The government have given us what we wanted. We wanted a stimulus package like no other.
Yes.
And what did we get?
A stimulus package that was similar to others.
It's going to be very similar to the ones in other countries.
No, it's it was a very interesting stimulus plan. It was great to get down into the details. So we've hopefully we've got a bit of detail here that we can impart to the listeners. So yes, the Australian government announced this week that there would be a $17.6 billion stimulus package, and it was pretty stimulating for some, I would say. So from the Treasurer, quote, "Our plan has 3 goals. 1, to protect Australians' health. 2, secure Australian jobs and livelihoods. And 3, set Australia up to bounce back stronger when the crisis is over." So yes, Morrison and his Treasurer, Josh Frydenberg, announced that 6.5 million people on low incomes would receive a $750 cash payment as part of the economic stimulus measures. And this includes all welfare recipients and pensioners, and will cost a total of $4.7 billion. And the remaining $750 quarters of the package will be for businesses, and it'll include cash payments for businesses, 50% wage subsidies for apprentices to keep apprentices in their jobs, and an increase of the threshold for the instant asset write-off from $30,000 to $150,000, which isn't bad.
What is that? Do you know what that is? What is an instant asset write-off?
So essentially, you got an asset and you don't, you want a new asset, then you can go out and purchase it, and it is a direct write-down on the taxable, essentially the taxable money that is made, the taxable income that is made by the organisation. So essentially, it means that they don't have to pay their next GST payment, or they don't have to pay their next, essentially it reduces the amount of taxable income that the company has to pay. Did that make sense?
I think I'm more confused. not because of your explanation. It's merely my brain was not primed for such accounting this early in the morning.
Oh, I love it. The treasurer does often talk about, it's so that your small business can go out and get another computer or a printer, but it's more actually about, you need a new ute because you're a labourer. You need, so it's all about
absolutely.
It's all about empowering our very broad small business, small to medium business and larger enterprises to essentially spend big on stuff, and the stuff that they purchase there's a bit of quid pro quo here. So you as a small business, you go and purchase a new car from a car lot that's struggling, and that means that they're able to keep on their sales workforce, and then those sales workforce, they make money and they come and spend money in your business, your business that just purchased a car off them. So yeah, sure, it sounds a little bit socialist, but it's really not. It's all about empowering people to act in a capitalist fashion. But the interesting thing here is because of this tax write-off, the premise of a tax write-off is essentially you need to have confidence that in 6 months' time you're still going to be in business, or in 12 months' time you're still going to be in business, and that you're not going to need to hold on to that cash that you're about to spend on that $30,000 or $150,000 thing. And so essentially there needs to be a relatively fair or relatively high amount of confidence that we are going to rebound quickly from this. And I would say that, for the last several years, consumer and business confidence has been at all-time record levels of lowness, all-time record lowness levels. So
the essence of being alone.
Exactly, the essence of it. I like that. So
right, that's because I want to stockpile my cash,
and toilet
in case
paper,
some I don't know unknown virus starts a pandemic, right?
Yes. No, you're exactly right.
As if that's ever going to happen.
But apart from that, Australians are, and we discussed this last week, Australians are in record levels of household debt. So, sure. It is tremendous that they're giving out $750 to the to people who are the most vulnerable in society. They are also saying that we want you to spend that cash now. We're giving you this cash. Go out and spend it now, please. This is time. This is a time, as the Prime Minister said, for Team Australia to go out and spend in Australia. So, given that we are at record levels of household debt, you got to think that a lot of people will want to be spending that on paying down their Zip Pay purchases, or paying down their credit card, or paying down their house loan, or whatever it happens to be. It's not a huge amount of money. It's probably enough for two rolls of toilet paper, but it is definitely something. So look, the amount to which this will stimulate the economy remains to be seen. Certainly when the Labor Party were in government back in 2008 and they released their stimulus package, it involved giving cash to everyone. somewhere between $1,000 and $1,400 per eligible household. And essentially, that was to stave off a retail recession. This is also targeted at getting us out of a technical recession. A technical recession happens when you have 2 straight quarters of negative growth. And we essentially, the government, while they haven't directly admitted it, it looks like the figures are showing that the March quarter, so January to March, it's in the negative. So if we sustain another quarter of negative growth, then we are technically in a recession. So this is all about empowering Australians to spend money now so that we don't fall into that technical recession. And, you know, so it is, I think strategically, it's a pretty good move. It covers our lowest, our most vulnerable populations, our retirees, our pensioners, and people on New Start, and people on low incomes, and it also targets our small to medium enterprises, trying to get trying to ensure that people retain their jobs so that they don't end up on New Start and having to receive the $750 and various other schemes. So it does, of course, remain to be seen as to whether more stimulus will be required. Many commentators were coming out this week saying essentially this has to be thought of as stage one, as phase one of the stimulus. So we will just have to see what happens after June. And certainly the budget is coming up in May, and the Treasurer has alluded to the fact that they're planning ferociously right now. So we'll just have to see what comes out in the wash with that.
The holes that Anthony Albanese has poked in this has been around the casual workers, has been around, it could include some support provisions for casual workers, which I think everyone would agree with. However, smart on the government side to not include that at the moment, but to announce that a bit later on as a bit of a bonus, and also smart of Anthony Albanese to make it sound like it's his idea.
Yes. Well, yes, that is traditionally the role of the opposition. Yeah, look, it is an interesting one around the casual workforce. You would expect that some of those people are also studying at university, maybe also have access to New Start, so may also be recipients of that $750 payout. So there is something in there for them, but I suppose also casual. I hate to sound like one of those boomers, such as the former treasurer.
Just let it out, Jake. Let it out.
The former treasurer. What was his name? He's now the ambassador to the United States. I can't think of it. Joe Hockey. Joe Hockey once said in an interview, about people on low incomes. Well, if you want a bigger house, get a better job. I hate to sound like that, but it is. You do have to make the comment that casual workforce. Part of that is a choice, right? Part of that is, I do, study mostly, and I work casually to get by, to make ends meet, etc. So,
I suppose the counter to that is I totally agree with you about, it is a choice and they take risks, but they take a risk in a usual environment.
Yes.
And this is not. So they sort of it can be a far more calculated risk in a normal economic world, non-pandemic situation. Whereas this is quite extreme. So that yes, they've taken a risk being a casual worker, as we all have done. Well,
in the past, yeah, absolutely.
Can't say all, most, but yes, as a lot of people have done in the workforce, they've taken that gamble being a casual, and you lose a shift here and there, maybe your job becomes redundant, and you go, all right, blah blah blah. That's a bit of a shame, but this is different. This is people who would have had jobs, 2 weeks ago, and now are being asked not to come to work. So. Yeah. It's and a lot of them. It's not like a mismanagement situation. Yep. It's not a bad decision by a CEO somewhere along the way, Flight Centre. But it's
Flight Centre.
it's a lot of people will miss out based on the complete miscalculation.
Yes.
About something that they couldn't predict. So
you are absolutely right, and you know what? I'm going to completely retract my statement. And you know, the reason for it is you absolutely laid it out perfectly. This is I hate to use this term again, but it is it is unprecedented. Well, it's not unprecedented. It has certainly happened before, but that is exactly what all of these. It's not unprecedented, but it is. No, but it is. It's one of those situations where this is exactly what the stimulus is trying to do. It is trying to keep people in their job. So it is meant to keep these casual workers working. It's meant to give people money so they'll go to their local cafe, so their local cafe has to continue to hire that casual worker, or wherever that casual worker is. And you are absolutely right to, although maybe we didn't point it out, you are absolutely right to allude to the fact that we are in a situation where youth unemployment is the highest it has been in decades. And certainly there is that new statistic that we are looking at, which is the underemployment rate, which is, essentially people can work more. People have the ability or capacity to work more than the hours that they are currently being given. So, look, I retract my statement. You are absolutely correct. And this is a situation where, the casual workforce should absolutely be supported to ensure that they retain their jobs and get the hours that they need in order to live and make ends meet.
Well, we'll have to wait and see what happens with the stimulus package part 2.
Yes.
Dun, dun, dun. Hopefully it's like the Terminator and it's better than the original.
Yeah, but not part 3.
Amazing.
Part 3 was pretty not great. Agreed.
There's never been a number 3 that's better than the others, is there?
I don't know. I think Austin Powers Goldmember was pretty good.
Well, I've never watched those movies. I'm not crass, Jake. I have class, right?
True.
Too many kittens to sell on Etsy. Jake, thank you so much for staying in quarantine while you're chatting to me this week. I certainly don't want any, usually I'd want your germs, Jake, but this week I'm happy to keep them at arm's length.
Yep, exactly.
Or 1.5 meters length.
Yes.
Let's quantify this because some people do have shorter arms than others. So once our dear listeners have fixed themselves on all the coronavirus news, what would you like them to do?
Well, I would absolutely love them to hit the subscribe button on their podcast player of choice, rate and review us. It absolutely helps. And definitely follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook by searching for The Pouch, the podcast.
Yes, and speaking of The Pouch, the podcast, if you want to share the love, you can tell your friends, families, neighbours, foes, grandparents, their grandparents, your duck pet, your kitten pet, everyone. Tell everyone to head to thepouchthepodcast.com where they can choose their favourite podcast player to go and listen to us every single day if they want to. Just have us on repeat, write us a review, give us 5 stars. Jake, thank you so much for chatting to me this week.
Greg, it is my pleasure. I just wanted to match you in intensity.
Match my enthusiasm.
I love it. Did you want to do the intro?
Yeah, we better.
Yeah, we should.
It'd be a good idea to do the intro.